My father is a healthy, strong man who has experienced and seen a lot in his long life. That night he returned from work at 3 in the morning. I didn't recognize him when he stepped over the apartment's threshold, pale as a ghost. His hands were slightly shaking when he tried to take off his shoes. Anxiety was written on his face, and I would even say fear. I wouldn't be too surprised to see him in such a state about 7 years ago when he just got this job, quite a specific job. He works at our city's crematorium, and during this time he has seen quite a variety. And already, let's say, I've gotten used to people's tearful mountains. Often, at the very beginning, he would come home almost crying. Then at the table, tipping back a shot of vodka, he told how he branded the child. He described how the relatives behaved in the mortuary. He described their eggs, looking nowhere, and I, thrown on the floor, and they probably cried out all the stars for years to come. He was mourning the loss together with the relatives of the deceased. He feared most to look into the special inspection window of the huge oven, which actually was the burning coffin of the deceased. But as usual, a person can get used to absolutely any conditions of life and work, and my dad was no exception, and cremating people became routine for him, like a cook preparing a dish in a restaurant or a mechanic fixing another car. I won't tell why and how he got such a job. I'll just say that circumstances turned out like this. So, he comes home in the middle of the night, and I was still awake, so I caught him in such a state. So what happened? He just glanced at me and, finally, taking off his sneakers, silently went to the kitchen. "Everything's fine," she mumbled half-voiced. "Everything's fine." "Dad, I don't look like a fool, do I?" "So any problems at work?" My father, realizing that he couldn't deceive me, replied, "I don't even know if that's what it's called." He took a bottle of vodka from the fridge and poured a full shot. He drank it in one gulp, sniffing the sleeve afterwards. I want to say that he drank very rarely after work lately, not like in the early days that I described earlier. My mom and I knew if he came home and reached for the bottle, something was wrong. Just then she woke up as if she sensed something was wrong. "Why are you so late?" Son gathered up. She went into the kitchen. He wanted to tell something, but didn't know where to start. His eyes were darting around and his tongue was tied. Mom woke up and, seeing Dad in such a state, visibly got nervous. "What's the matter with you? There's no steam on your face at all." And only flicking the bottle on the table, Mom finally understood that the very same work troubles were to blame. But, having heard everything he had to go through today, it turns out, problems at work, that's an understatement. I heard his words. "A lady definitely visited us today, and she made an appointment in advance by phone. Everything is done properly. And today she showed up in person, completely devastated with grief. In short, her daughter died. I didn't delve into details. Seems like cancer. Well, that's what the director told us. I'm not particularly interested either. A beautiful, young girl, looking to live and raise children, good by fate. And her mom, well, these girls seemed a bit strange to me a little later. Everyone was rushing us, asking how we could speed up the process. We told her that we will begin as soon as all the paperwork is sorted out. My job is just to press a button and adjust the temperature. What can I explain to her? I don't dare to decide anything here. And she was in such a hurry that she wanted to burn the girl on her knee right that second. I had nothing left but to explain to the woman that I am just an ordinary machinist and decide nothing. She even offered to pay me. But for me, a stable salary is far more important than a one-time bonus. Well, I'm absolutely not. I refused once, I refused twice, and on the third time she looked at me like that. Honestly, I really did not feel well. How? His mother asked again. I don't even know how to explain it. As if I had been chasing her all my life. She angrily left and slammed the door so hard that the decoration didn't fall off. I stand, watching her with my gaze, and with peripheral vision I look at Ivanic. Ivanic is a colleague of my father, and he just twirls his finger from afar and points to the wobbly piano on the door. Well, that pretty much ended the encounter with that not-so-pleasant lady, and we continue our work. And a little later, when we had already forgotten about her, there came in Vladimir Yurievich, our director, and he says, we sorted out all the papers. They will bring a kilo of the girl by the evening. Well, if they bring it, good, let them bring it. How about the farewell, the requiem service, isn't it? Suddenly Ivanic got interested. She said that nothing is needed. They have already chosen a burial site. Strange. Aren't they Christians? Well, why should I know? She's kinda quirky in my opinion. Vladimir Yurievich was outraged. I agreed with him and explained. Then she tried to stuff money into our pockets. So guys, I'm going to print a paper. She has already paid for everything. So when they deliver, around 6 to 7 in the evening, we'll do it right away. Agreed? Yes, no problem. I sighed and pressed the button on the remote, sending another deceased to the oven. As the boss said, they brought a coffin with a girl by evening. It was hard to call it a coffin though. The simplest wooden box slapped together as if from leftover planks and swiped from somewhere at a sawmill. Well, I've seen weirder things over 7 years. Not everyone can afford to cremate the deceased in beautiful, expensive boxes. It's going to burn anyway. What's the point of splurging? All right, Keela, bring it. And I'm standing here feeling a bit of a whiff from the grave. In our case, it is generally necessary to check all this stuff. You never know. A different person might be lying there. The coffin was unloaded. I went to it, but it was nailed with a number under the nails. You'll have to excuse me, I addressed the woman. But I need to check. I need to open the coffin. It's impossible without this. Those are the rules. Who knows? Another person might be lying there. You can say goodbye to your daughter for now. We already did. The woman answered hastily. She was in a hurry to get rid of the body as soon as possible. It was obvious, as if trying to hide something. It looked just like that. It's so strange, it seemed that way to me then. But I'm used to not asking questions and doing what I'm supposed to. Everything is fine with the papers. The boss gave his approval. All that's left is to see it through. In 2 to 3 hours, you will be able to take your daughter's ashes. Do you have an urn or something? I don't have a watch. In that case, you can buy it here. You'll just make it in time. Go down the corridor and turn right. There's a small shop there. I showed the woman the way. She seemed to go. Then she comes back to me. And then she quietly leaned over and whispered, so no one could hear. Can you tell us a little more about the process? Do you take the ashes somewhere to scatter them? I'm sorry, but I can't do that. As politely as I could, I replied, barely holding back from giving her a piece of my mind. Your daughter died, bitch. Not only did you not bother to buy a decent coffin, you didn't say goodbye, you didn't pray, and you even want to throw out the ashes. Even though I don't usually meddle in other people's business, all this was somehow abnormal. Well, as the client's wish is the law, we had to comply. Sniffing her nose, Mommy went towards the shop while Ivan and I carried the coffin to the oven. I couldn't find the damn crowbar to crack it open. We stand pulling out nails one by one, and the more the lid is uncovered, the stronger the smell of breath becomes. Otherwise it's already rotting there. As Ivanish was hissing to himself. Well, judging by the smell, yes, I replied. And finally getting rid of the last nail, we opened the lid. Indeed, a young girl was living in a coffin. We compared her face with the photograph. Yes, it was her. Though her body began to rot in some places, her face was still okay. The scoop, she's got it lying around. The child started to decay. Ivanish blew his top again. The certificate says she died yesterday. There's no way. The colleague was surprised. She died yesterday and started to stink already. And I'm looking at the girl. Indeed, in some places, especially on the legs and on the stomach, just below the chest. Here are just such spots where worms are about to start. Okay, that's not our business anymore, the college confirmed to her. Let's close, we'll start. Age is warmed up. Yes, it's already ablaze. Good. We loaded the wooden box. The furnace door opened and the coffin slowly moved inside. The door closed and I calmly stepped out for a smoke. Non-smoker Ivanish stayed inside. So I get up, breathing in the fresh air. He then approaches me and says, "You know, there's that. What is it?" I look at him and he's like all startled. I don't know. Maybe I was imagining things, but it seemed like someone was screaming in the stove. Besides a smile on my face, his words did not evoke anything in me. "Ivanish, if you brought the bottle, you should share. Not drink it all by yourself." I was laughing. "Did you look out the window?" "No, I came to you right away." "You saw it yourself. The body is decomposing. Most likely you heard something, but I don't know yet. It's time for everyone to retire." Ivanish thought, "It's time for you to retire. You can still give any young guy a head start. Let's go see what's going on." So we approach the stove, and we have a special heat-resistant window there. Well, to control the process, I'm opening it, looking inside. There lies a charred coffin, but there's no fire. It's all smoky, will drive off, but does not burn. And on the furnace control panel, the red light is blinking. At least there's automatic gas cut off in the furnace. I'm standing there perplexed, staring out the window, clueless. How can this be? What's going on there? Ivanish was inquiring. I've been working here for years. It's the first time I'm encountering this. I reviewed and rechecked everything it means. I tried to turn the oven on again. Everything inside is forgotten, and tongues of flame appeared in the viewing window. Strange, mumbled Ivan. What did you want? Technology, it can sometimes be capricious. Yes, it worked like a clock for many years, but then it decided to break. Well, coincidences happen. Not even 5 minutes passed, and the history repeated itself. Then we decided to pull out the burnt coffin and fire up the furnace without it. And when it was working perfectly, bad thoughts began to infiltrate my head. In short, we warmed it up nicely, and the game went back inside. Seems like everything flared up there. I didn't move away from the window. Watched to make sure nothing went out. The fire consumed the wooden box and was already close to the glowing body. So I'm looking and I noticed the corpse's hand twitching. It was extremely difficult to cope, but nonetheless I noticed. At night I was thinking, it seemed. But there's a pillar of fire. What can you see there? I was calming myself then. But when the oven went out again, and the red light came on the panel, already a burned girl's face was staring at me through the window. I only had to look away for a second. Ivanich wanted something from me. I turned back, and in front of me is a face in this lake Kamakuzukia, so scary that I involuntarily started to cross myself and almost fell. There was something alive in the stove, and I swear to you, it wasn't that late girl. Who was that? Wait, you didn't drink at work, did you? Mom didn't believe him, and I myself hardly accepted what my father is telling now. Are you totally stupid or what? I don't drink at work at all. You don't believe me, do you? Just keep going, Dad. Everything's fine. Look at me in the window. There was a real devil. Here's a cross for you. A bare human body, a female body, presenting such a bubble. Breasts are swinging. A head, first of all, more than ordinary human. And secondly, there was neither eyes, nor mouth, no nose on the face. Everything was pulled over with charred skin, and the face itself was as if split in two. It's black in the middle, and in this darkness, as if worm cutter. Yes, various insects. Don't believe it. Just a second. You'll believe it now. Father went to the hallway and took out his phone from the jacket. He stared at me for about a minute. I managed to take his picture. The photograph shown by Father. My hair stood on end, and Mom even screamed. I immediately dismissed Photoshop, editing and the like, because my dad and his colleague are absolutely hopeless with their phones, let alone computers. Why would he need to do that? I've been at my dad's work several times, and I knew that the furnace in the photo was the very one, and his frightened reflection with the phone in his hands. There was no doubt about the authenticity of the photographs, and already understanding that this was real, we continued to listen to our father's story. What the hell is this? Ivanich roared. And immediately after these words, the scary face disappeared from the window. There were loud bangs from the oven. Whatever was inside really wanted to get out, and the walls aren't too thick either, and the door is just as non-squeaky. Turn it on! Turn on the oven! Faster! You hear me? Ivanich was shouting, and I stood there like a half-wit, watching this whole nightmare. My brain just completely shut down, and I lost control of my body. That's when Ivanich rushed to the control panel and pressed the marriage proposal button. Inside, it flared up, and there was such a wild noise. Honestly, I thought I would faint right there in the engine room. I can't even describe what it was like, you know. Some damn train roar, mixed with hundreds, if not thousands of human screams. Why were you standing there? You should have run to the devil's mother, asked Mom. I don't know why we were standing there. That's how the wind-up horror works, you know. Maybe this damn filth has taken control over us. I don't know. I can't explain it. My father poured another shot of vodka, downed it, and continued. Yes, then we ran, but not immediately. It snapped in my head when the furnace inspection window broke. Yes, seems like that's when we started running. There was no management left. Nobody was in the crematorium. Everyone had already dispersed to their homes. We ran out of the engine room and further down the corridor, and then the devil pulled me to turn back. This creature was already peeking from behind the door to that very hole. So he managed to get out through that small window. I was curious. I have no idea how he got out, but he was there. And then he even started following us. We go to the door, but it's locked. We go to the black entrance, and it's the same story. Ivanich was already hysterical, as if he had forgotten how to speak from fear. He's running around in different directions. I was in the same state. What a sin. What the hell? Who decided to lock the doors? Where are the keys? I shouted at him. In the tone of his words, it was like a blade to the throat. In short, the best we could come up with was to hide in the storeroom. Luckily, it was open. We're sitting in the dark. Blocked the door with 7 pieces of the strip. I hear it's walking down the hallway. Such heavy shuffling steps. He passed by the storeroom and we pushed out. It was just too early to open it, to run in the other direction. I opened the door, looked around. Seems like no one's here. Damn, it was just getting out of the storeroom. His head, sliced in half, appeared from around the corner. Then we ran with all our might towards the windows. No one thought of going back to the machine storage.
Grabbed the keys.
Leave the crematorium. Opened the window and jumped onto the street. Don't even ask why we didn't do it earlier. I'm telling you, my brain is just like a sieve. It completely switched off. Then Pluveli Ivanovich managed to sprain his leg. Fell down, screaming like a butchered pig. Well, what am I supposed to do? Just leave it. Barely managed to lift the fatty and dragged it like a wounded soldier. And that beast was just staring at us through the window. And when I turned around again, somewhere about 15 to 20 seconds later, who didn't see him there? When we had moved a decent distance away from the crematorium, when we saw cars on the road and other people, it seems a bit relieved. Went to the hospital with Ivanich, then called the taxi and now I'm home. What a referee, whispered Mom, covering her mouth with her hand. For the last few minutes, I've been closely watching my father's behavior, which was, let's say, a bit odd. He kept looking around as if he was searching for something, and his eyes, by the way, were darting in different directions too. Mom apparently didn't notice this. She was listening to Dad, but I saw everything, and I could hear the one that fell in the other corner on the shelf in our parents' bedroom. Unlike my parents, all the windows are closed. There's nowhere for the belt to grab. Noticed another strangeness when Dad finished the bottle, and they were getting ready for bed with Mom, although it was already approaching morning. Dad undressed and went to take a shower. He's your typical bloke. Took off his clothes, socks, and threw them somewhere in the hallway. As I was passing by, I suddenly noticed movement in that pile. Looked closer, and there were worms, pale white worms. Only a few, about 5. Wanted to call Mom, talk to her about Dad, but she was already asleep. I didn't wake up tomorrow, I think. We'll talk about all this with a fresh mind. But if I knew what would happen tomorrow, or rather today, after my parents, I went to my room and went to sleep. I couldn't sleep for a long time, pondering about everything. And the picture my dad showed me wouldn't leave my mind. Despite being tired all day, I conked out closer to morning. But it wasn't the alarm clock or Mom's voice that woke me up. I was awakened by a horrible smell of Harry. I'm getting up from bed. The whole flat is covered in smoke and there are tongues of flame in the corridor, wrapping the egg with a t-shirt. I run out of the room and realize that the parents' bedroom is completely engulfed in flames. Mother was already driving without slowing down and being burnt out. And there was no sign of father. No clothes, no phone, no documents. He disappeared into thin air. I ran out of the flat and called the fire brigade. They arrived quickly and dealt with the fire just as quickly. Mom died. I miraculously managed to survive. Dad disappeared. I also decided to go home. Thankfully, I have a good friend I could stay with for a while. My mother was buried the day after the fire, at the same cemetery where my father used to work nearby.
What was that?
It was. He is running now. I can't be certain, but I have a hunch as to why that woman was in such a hurry to cremate the body. Because some unclean woman lived in the girl's body, a force. And when only ashes were left of her body, this foul force came out and took my parents. Although perhaps it's wandering nearby with my father's body, just waiting to do something.